What can you tell me about the phrase, she fucked me, tear his balls off? Do you know anything about this at all?
How do you know that?
You're Syzy, we have to know. First off, what can you tell me about rocket jumping in TF2?
It's just like a mechanic, I guess.
Mhm.
Kind of like how surfing is in like CS. Sort of take surfing, but you can like blast yourself. There's like a whole lot of mechanics that go into it that's like hard to explain.
Is there strafing? I'm assuming it's a source game, so I'm assuming there's strafing.
Yeah, it's a source game, so there's hella strafing and stuff.
Next, a while back on Twitter, the Bajalvin boys kicked off a conversation by mentioning how, at least in their eyes, a huge problem with like modern dubstep music is that a lot of producers are just drawing solely from the genre of dubstep rather than like stepping outside the genre and pulling inspiration from other stuff. So I'm wondering, like, what role do you think like diversity has played in like your inspirations, even beyond like the weight of the world?
A lot of like dubstep these days is like an echo chamber. Like I took like almost 3 years off from just releasing music. During that time frame, there was like a lot of music on like side accounts and stuff, but I think a lot of that was just practice for like the main body of work. All of that music was not dubstep inspired in the slightest. A lot of that practice helped because I remember when I was making the album, I had so many ideas of like how to like push the sound of the album forward in like a unique way. And like the original idea was like putting all of my side accounts into like one project. It took very long to do
I can
that.
imagine,
It
yeah.
took a lot of
You got a lot of
retries.
side accounts, yeah.
Yeah, there's also a lot of scraps where I just didn't get it right whatsoever.
Have you like revisited any of the stuff that you scrapped at one point and been like, I was kind of onto something here, and like maybe
There are a lot of songs where like that I made in the process that were like, I'm definitely onto something, but I don't know how to finish it.
And then I'm wondering, are any stuff you've been inspired by lately that maybe like the average fan of yours like wouldn't necessarily expect?
I think the most surprising one might be like the Cranberries and like Ethel Cain. A lot of like the song structures, I guess, and like just like the overall like mood that those songs put me in when listening to them. I wanted to like replicate that, if not like in the song itself in like a specific section.
For sure. I will say, like, I definitely got the impression that a lot of the weight of the world is like structured around like pop music, if anything.
Yeah. It's very new to me. Like I tried writing just pop instrumentals because why not? It's a really good practice because it's like a lot of dubstep is just like a sound design war.
Oh, trust me, I got a question about that.
As someone who used to like take part in it, I mean, I'm kind of sick of it. None of that shit really matters. Like to make a good song, it just kind of depends on how you see making music. Because a lot of people, they don't want to write like a crazy song. They just want to like a tool for DJing and whatnot, which is totally valid. I just had like a completely different vision for that album. And it'll probably be the vision going forward too.
And that leads us as a good segue into my next question. My interview with Underscores, the direct quote from her, she described a lot of like the dubstep world as a giant dick measuring contest in regards to sound design.
Yeah, that's so right.
Yeah,
that's so right.
So I'm wondering, like, did you take that attitude like into account when like constructing the weight of the world?
Well, I definitely didn't think about it in a way that was like, I gotta out sound design everybody. I think a lot of the sound design on the album is relatively simple. Becoming friends with a lot of people that aren't from dubstep and like seeing how they perceive making music, it hit me like, I feel like I'm viewing this all wrong, especially because I already had aspirations of like, man, I want to be taken seriously. Like I want to like write a song that will move somebody.
If you won the lottery and couldn't tell anyone, what would be the purchase that'd give it away?
How much is the lottery?
Like $1 billion trillion, like a shit ton of money.
I would buy off my mom's house.
Oh hell yeah. Okay, that's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah.
But no, I want to know the reason why I'm asking is I want like a stupid purchase. I want to know like what the most expensive like TF2 item you would buy is or something like. I want to know something like that. We aren't for sincerity here. We're here for stupidity. Okay, so
I don't really care about hats that much, but I would probably get a golden frying pan.
How much is that worth?
That's like 500 bones, I think.
500
or not 500, 5,000.
5,000. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say 500. Oh, that's like a CS:GO knife. Like, come on now. Next, I'm really glad to have you here to ask this because at this point I've probably spoken to half a dozen people about this, but I've never spoken to you about the night that Speed hopped on one of your beats. So I'm wondering if you could take us through that series of events and like take us through how that night played out.
I woke up to people spamming me essentially. Just
I can imagine that was a hell of a thing to wake up to.
The craziest thing happened. I had already known about Speed hitting up Jane.
Right, because he also hopped on a Leroy beat.
What I was going through in my head is like, how did he find my song specifically? And what I think what he was doing, because a lot of those videos were like centered around like him doing things.
Right.
He probably looked up like twerk and SoundCloud.
I never even thought about that, but you're so right. He probably literally just looked up twerk music or something.
And at the time, I think the Promises remix was Twerk Nation's top song, and he heard that and he's just like, let's just go with it.
I remember watching in real time as the video got updated to have Prod Twerk Nation 28 included in the title.
Yeah, they also added Prod Me in the title. I don't know how that happened. A lot of the Twerk Nation 28 members were like storming the Speed Discord server. I didn't know how much that would have done. But fun fact, the person who shot the video found out about this and actually DM'd me like, I would have credited you at the end of the video if I would have known. Like, that's your beat. This is crazy. We didn't even negotiate anything. I think a lot of people are still under the assumption that like I have like an IShowSpeed connect. And, like, that's just not true. Like, I've never
Yeah, no, you sent
to
it,
him.
you're tapped in. Your people got in touch with his people. Yeah. I should preface this next one by saying I don't know what this means at all. What can you tell me about the phrase "she fucked me, tear his balls off"? Do you know anything about this at all?
How do you know that?
Oh, you're Syzy. We have to know.
Don't pull a nard.
And I don't know anything about that. That's why I'm asking you.
This is a deep cut.
Okay.
This on the iceberg. Me, Neonix, and Somnium Sound. We would do these things that they called cock ciphers.
Okay. This is, I'm assuming, like 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's pretty old. Basically, in one night, we were just like, let's write like a really bad song. I just made like a really like typical rage beat. Lee, Neonix did like the chorus essentially. I don't do vocals a lot, which is funny. Something deeply rooted on the album Iceberg is that the vocals from that song are on the album.
Are you serious? In what context?
Like vocal chops. Yeah, I don't know. This is the song that'll never see the light of day. That's why I was like, how do you know?
Well, you're Syzy. We have to know.
It's not the only one that we've made. We have one with Lance in it.
Really? On vocals?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
They fucking always have like the craziest cipher bars ever. It's so funny.
And what would you say were some of the biggest lessons you learned in the creation of The Weight of the World that you're maybe carrying into what you are making next?
The biggest thing is like actually practicing songwriting. The idea of like sitting on music and like letting it like grow as like you grow as a musician is very important. I think like one of the biggest examples is like, I'm forgetting that one Space Laces song. Disco Bloodbath, I think
Maybe,
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, that song is like 12 years old. The first original like clip, it was like a mix cut on his SoundCloud from over 10 years ago. I don't remember the specific time, but like that song is really old. And that song came out like 2 years ago, I think. And like hearing the differences between like how it sounded then and then how it sounds now is like, it just like kind of shows how much you can like improve an idea, even if it's just like very tiny amounts, I guess.
Next, you're from Huntington Beach, correct?
Yeah, the Florida of California.
Florida, that's a good way. I was going to say the armpit of California, but that works too. Armpit's more like, actually, that's more like Fresno. They know how to get down in Huntington Beach. They make going to the beach look like an Olympic sport.
I don't live here, guys. Please.
Where's
don't.
Yeah, no, don't look. No, don't. We don't identify with them. Yeah, we don't claim
I don't
them.
live there.
Do you see yourself moving anytime soon?
Yes. I'm not like set on where I want to move, but it's just certainly not going to be there anymore. Yeah. I just need to get out of there.
And just the other day, you posted a video on Twitter demonstrating that one of the leads in the final track of the album is actually the Skype call jingle under like a lot of processing.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I mean, you mentioned that the Cox cipher is sampled in the album as well. I'm wondering, are there any other interesting samples like that are buried in the album?
Do you know Rance Allen?
Vaguely, yes.
In Experience Higher, there is a Rance Allen singing sample of him just going like, bah! in the intro. The only other thing is like a 1975 sample.
Really? Which song?
The last track.
And on the topic, my friend Evan actually replied to that tweet, making the point that the project file you were showing off was remarkably well organized, but I can imagine that isn't always the case. So I'm wondering, what's the most fucked up project file you've ever worked in?
I made a noise remix of Tech It. There's so many samples and shit, it's ridiculous. One thing about my project files is that I don't label anything, and I think that's the one thing that when I'm working with people, they like dislike the most. I've never labeled anything or used any like auto labeling feature. It's just like kind of overwhelming, I feel like, with a lot of shit on the screen already. A lot of my project files can be like described as like an autistically messy bedroom, I guess. You have a lot of shit on the floor, but you know where everything is.
Right. That's a good way of putting it. Like, you know, when your phone charger is, you know.
Yeah. Like, it's on the floor, it looks like a mess to somebody, but like I know where all my shit is, even if it's not in like an organized fashion.
But then put somebody in the room and tell them to find your phone, then yeah, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, yeah.
No, I remember, I think the last person I asked this to was Kamo. whenever he has to send project files to like label people and whatnot, he just calls it like flange shit synth 1 or whatever. Like,
when I did the Crush remix, there was like so many stems. I had to like consolidate a singular stem dedicated to like a bloop noise, and it was just called something really stupid. And it was like for like less than like half a second.
Next, what can you tell me about your manager's SoundCloud?
What a mess, right? It used to be a place of serious business. My manager was very prominent in like trap music back then. He kind of like quit music in like a business way to like pursue like making music for video games and stuff.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, he even has some like OSTs he's made on his SoundCloud. And then he passed the SoundCloud password over to my friend Lee Neonix. And if you scroll down the account, you'll see an upload called "This is my account now," and it's just him going like, "This is my account." I also have the password and I've uploaded stuff to it. Basically, our manager just told us, just don't do something that'll get my job lost, essentially.
And that raises the point that between Jonald and everything else you've amassed, quite the backlog of like, let's say less serious music. So I'm wondering, like, do you ever feel conflicted between those desires of like wanting to have fun and like post like silly stuff like that and wanting to be taken like capital S like seriously as an artist?
I feel like the more serious you take music, the more like dread you feel towards it. Like obviously the album was super serious and like really emotional and like dug into my brain a lot. But like if you don't take time to have fun with music too, then like you're really gonna hate it. I almost feel like it's necessary to like, you don't even have to make like a shit post account. Just like make whatever. Even if you think you know it'll sound bad, why restrict yourself?
If you were to be reincarnated as anything, what would you want to be reincarnated as?
I'm just gonna say like a bird, honestly.
A bird?
Like a
Hell
parrot.
Yeah. A parrot would be kind of cool. You'd still be able to talk. Like that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'd like to be a parrot.
Hell yeah. Next, you've DJed for some pretty big crowds over the years. So I'm wondering, would you say it's easier to perform for a crowd of 20 or a crowd of 2,000?
There's a lot of things at play when it comes to like the various room sizes. I think one big thing though is awkwardness, whether if it be in yourself or just like the general room. Because like if you aren't the main act, let's say you play like a big stage with a lot of people, there are people there for you, but also like there's obviously going to be an overwhelming majority amount of people who aren't,
right,
and they won't even know you.
You have to spend a little bit of time at least like winning them over or whatever, like introducing yourself kind of sonically even.
Kinda, yeah. A lot of those bigger rooms have rules in place for people that aren't the headliner. Like they'll gain stage you, which is basically everyone before the headliner, they'll turn down their volume.
Mm-hmm.
That's very fucking dumb.
It's stupid.
I don't like it.
You're less important, so we turned you down.
Yeah, luckily a lot of those bigger shows that I've played, the headliner like really cares. I think a good example is like Sudden Death. I've never felt like more like at home with Sudden Death and his team because they're so caring. I've actually watched him like get physically like angry when he hears news that someone's being gain staged. He's very real. He knows how it feels to like be in that position.
It's frustrating to see larger artists seemingly forget what it's like to be, because everybody starts out at that point, right? Yeah. And on the topic of large shows, something you see a lot with large EDM festivals is people getting what are clearly pretty sizable budgets for visuals and then blowing them on just bullshit like Shrek breathing fire or whatever else. So I'm wondering, if you were handed like excision money for visuals, what would you want to bring to life?
Just commission all the people that I find on Twitter, essentially. Probably like a Subi Club level like visual.
It's funny you bring that up because I mean Underscore's commissioned some of the people that worked on the Subi Club laced out music video for her tour, so yeah.
But what's funny is like a lot of those visual loops, they cost so much money for how they look. I'm not necessarily calling them like bad, it's just like,
you'd think Shrek vomiting like neon all over like a crowd would be not 4 figures or 5 figures or whatever.
It definitely was like 4 figures.
Yeah. And also just like, I don't know, you're performing at like a main stage of a giant festival and that's the most you could come up with. Not to like, I don't know, endless possibilities for visuals and you choose Shrek between some letterboxes and he like pokes his head out and it's like a big,
I think it's just like where the internet's headed, I guess. Like it's very funny and memey and like not so serious, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Which can be fun in some ways, but
there's a way to do it without like, you know, slop.
Yeah, the slop. And that raises the point that we're recording this interview just a few hours before your show alongside Eptic tonight. So I'm wondering, how are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Anything like that?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I love songs from the album that I haven't been able to play yet.
Oh, you're doing the album tonight?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. What would you say are some of the biggest lessons in live performance that you've picked up over the years?
I used to be very scared of playing what I wanted to play. And then I realized like, I don't know, what's the worst that they could do? Boo me? Go for it. Obviously you have to like watch the crowd essentially and like read the room. But I also want to play my own music too, you know?
And then how do you look back on your earlier music, maybe dating as far back as like Please Enjoy Music?
A lot of that music, I was just kind of learning what it meant to have a spotlight on me, I feel like. Even if it wasn't really big, I'm still not really used to having people like know my music, I guess. And at that time, I was like so clueless. I think Please Enjoy Music was like around the time where I started figuring things out. A lot of that music still isn't very like, I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just like it represents the era that it's from, I guess.
That leads me into my next question, which is just that, like, considering The Weight of the World is such a significant departure from the previous material that a lot of people have come to know you from, I'm wondering, how do you rectify the fact that a lot of people's impression of you is built upon work that doesn't necessarily represent the sort of direction that you're headed in now?
A lot of the old fans weren't very happy, I will say that, especially with the culture of like dubstep that I came from. It's very aggressive when it comes to like sticking to the genre, I guess.
Right.
Like I've been at the forefront of people like literally sending me threats because I'm not making what they want to hear. I'm like thankful for a lot of the fans that kind of are like sticking through it, because I know they went from like my biggest song at that point to like the album. They were just like, what happened? It's like, is this even the same person? Like, I'm very grateful that like there are people who still want to listen despite like that change of sound.
And no matter how many new artists you discover, it seems like there's always 100 more you wish you found sooner. So if you could pick a handful of listeners or artists to put our listeners onto right now, who would you pick?
3 artists that are like constantly inspiring me are Sydney Runner, Tropes, and YVM3. Interesting group of artists to bring up, like as in one whole.
Tropes' recent album was also fucking incredible. I totally get it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and a lot of Tropes' new music is fucking crazy. Neonics. I'm sure people watching would definitely know him, but if there's anyone who doesn't, I think they're making some of the most like enthralling EDM music today.
And you've collaborated with quite a few people over the years, but I'm sure there are still plenty more you want to work with. So if you can name a handful of dream collaborators, who would they be?
A lot of my dream collaborations have already happened. Or not, they're not already happened, but they're like happening. One of them that I still want to happen is Space Laces.
Oh, that would be fucking sick, yeah. Finally, what are you looking to accomplish this year? What can we expect from Syzy going forward?
I'm not sure. I have a couple of collaborations with some pretty cool artists. I don't know if they'll come out, but I do want to release like a Scraps EP, Scraps from the album, essentially.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you so much for joining with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, woohoo!